Hello, good morning one and all. I am introducing myself. I am Dr. Preetha GS from Department of Political Science, SN College, Kollam. Today I am discussing about Marxism. The Marxism is a paramount. Today Marxism is a paramount influence in the contemporary world. It is a dialectical theory of human progress. It provides a theory of social change. Before going to Marxism, I would like to express some of the key words in Marxism. First one is the dialectical materialism, and second one is the materialistic interpretation of history. Then another one is the theory of class struggle. Then next point is the theory of surplus value. Then another one is the withering away of the state. Then dictatorship of the proletariat and the establishment of a classless, stateless society, and the establishment of a Marxian society. The philosophy of Marxism, it provides the theory of social change and a scientific philosophy which helps in understanding the laws of social development. It also provides a revolutionary program for the emancipation of the exploited classes. Marx mentioned these exploited classes in have-nots. And suggests revolutionary methods by changing the present society. It wants to establish a rational basis, a society in which men shall not be exploited by men. It will be a society in which all will live in peace, harmony and comfort and enjoy full freedom and liberty and will have the full opportunity to develop their potentialities and personality. In fact, this society, Marx calls it a society as a communist society. It shall be a classless, stateless society. And he says that it was really an ideal society. It was an ideal society, and the Marxian philosophy came into being as a reaction to the failings of liberal ideology. And Marx was a social scientist, a political philosopher and a revolutionary. He was interested in creating a real socialist society. Prior to him, philosophers had only interpreted the world as they had found it. Marx was interested in a critical analysis of society in order to change and restructure it on a new foundations and a new human relationships. The main principles of Marxism. First one is the dialectical materialism. Marx borrowed this dialectical materialism from Hegel. According to Hegel, the world moves and changes constantly. The basis of this movement is ideas or world spirit. Marx studied deeply the dialectics of Hegel and adopted it his own philosophy. It is imperative to understand Hegel's dialectics for clear understandings of dialectical materialism. According to a great philosopher, Hegel says that the world moves and changes constantly. He says these ideas as are thesis. He also says that there are contradictions of ideas emerged in society that is termed as antithesis. Besides, he says that these antitheses often came into clash with each other. Then as a result, a new product emerged in society that is known as the synthesis. Thesis, antithesis and synthesis. According to Hegel, idea begins with the thesis. Contradictions to ideas appears naturally. This is called antithesis. Now the tussle between thesis and antithesis begins and the new idea emerges. This is known as the synthesis according to Hegel. This synthesis becomes thesis, later on facing conflict again. Synthesis emerges, schemes continues and ultimately the truth is realized. Marx accepted Hegelian idea of dialectics, but he rejected his idea. Marx accepted Hegelian dialectics, but he rejected his idea that the world is regulated only by the world spirit. The reason behind that, he was a materialist. Marx was purely a materialist. He replaced the world of Hegel by matter. According to him, Marx was not Marx and not the world spirit on the basis of the dialectics. So many other factors that lead to the world. Material object is on the basis of the world. According to him, matter evolved and it moved towards the growth constantly. This evolution takes place through dialectical process, and that is the matter evolves through thesis, antithesis and the synthesis. Then there occur so many criticism regarding the dialectical materialism. First criticism is on dialectical materialism is purely vague. Then a second criticism is matter is not conscious. Then Marx gives too much emphasis on materialism. Then another criticism is dialectical process is defective. Then violent revolution is not acceptable. Marxism stressed on the point that to achieve perfection to society, revolution is essential. But this revolution may be non-violent. For arriving at the perfect stage of society, we need peaceful change and growth. Violence is not acceptable. Violence delays and disturbs the establishment of the lasting peace. It is difficult to achieve as an ideal that way. His wrong interpretation of human history. Dialectical theory of historical development by means of thesis, antithesis and synthesis appears to be quite convincing. Then another second point is the materialistic interpretation of history. First point is the dialectical materialism and second point is the materialistic interpretation of history. Marx applied dialectical materialism for his interpretation of the development of society. He has made materialistic interpretation of history, which he called as historical materialism. The fact that he has made materialistic interpretation of history because, according to Marx, the determining factor of development of history is a productive forces. Besides, the materialistic or economic factor, he says that the economic factor is determined everything in the society. Then Marx interpreted all historical events by means of materialistic interpretation of history. According to him, all political institutions, social systems, trade, industry, art and craft, customs, practices, traditions, religion, and every aspect of life of any country or any age are determined by the material conditions prevailing here. All the social and political revolutions described in history are determined by the material conditions of life. Here we can say that a base superstructure analysis. In that base superstructure analysis, he says that everything is determined by economic factors in a society. Then Marx described 6 stages of history elaborating the conditions of the past, present and the future. Then first stage is the age of primitive communism. Then second stage is the age of slavery, and third is the age of feudalism. Fourth is the age of capitalism. Then another one is the age of capitalism. Then next point is the age of the dictatorship of the proletariat and the age of the stateless society. Then there arises so many criticism regarding his materialistic interpretation of history. The first criticism is on the background that he too much emphasizes on the economic factors. The viewpoint of Marx that only the economic factor and no other human factor is responsible for social transformation is not logical. All the human activities are not determined only by the economic factors. There are so many other factors that are determined. Every other human conduct is not determined. It is only one factor. His behavior is determined by geographical, social and human factors also. Then he gives a low place to religion. Marx does not give importance to religion. He regards religion as an intoxication and false consolation. He forgets that religion as a significant role for the highest spiritual development of the men. Then another criticism is on the labor law and did not become the poorer. Then another criticism is it is impossible to determine the different stages of history. Then the current history cannot stop at the stateless society. Then last criticism is economic power is not essential to capture the political power. Then third Marxian thought is the theory of the class struggle. The theory of class struggle drawn from Marxist materialistic interpretation of history is an important idea. According to him, in a society, every age there exist some of the conflict classes. He says that in a capitalist society, there often occur the difference between the haves and have-nots. He termed as there occur the differences between the proletariat and the bourgeois. The proletariat were often exploited by the bourgeois. So according to Marx, struggle exists even now. The main feature of the present struggle is that it is a unique, distinct, because of society today is divided into two distinct groups, capitalist and the working class. both fighting in a both were often fighting. Marx made a searching analysis of the present struggle. Then there are so many criticism arise on the theory of class struggle. First point is the basis of a social life is cooperation and not a struggle. The idea of Marx that the struggle is on the basis of social life is not always good. It is completely wrong. In practice, common social life is based on cooperation, good feelings, sacrifice, sympathy, and other values. Marx ignored this important aspect of human life. Then another point is wealth is not concentrated in few hands. Marx says that in a capital society, the wealth is concentrated in the capitalist class only. That is not correct. Then class struggle is based on hatred. It is it cannot be accepted that it is based on hatred. This theory ignores the virtue like sympathy. As a human being, he has so many qualities like sympathy, tolerance, brotherhood, and such things. In fact, hatred is destructive, it is not constructive, and it creates class hatred. Then another criticism is the society is now divided into two classes only. According to Marx, the society is divided into two classes, that is a haves and have-nots. That is not correct. Marx divided society into two classes, but in practice, there is a larger and middle class in between. His idea is not correct. Then another criticism is on social and economic classes are not one and the same. Then the sentiment of nationalism is stronger than class. This is a major criticism against his theory. The sentiment of nationalism. The Marx said that the interest of the working class throughout the world is similar in nature. So they will be organized for in their own interest and will struggle against a capitalist. He did not accept the limits of nationality. Then according to him, workers throughout the world will be united irrespective of nationality in their struggle against a capitalist. Then another criticism is capitalism did not come to an end. Then another point is his famous theory of surplus value. The theory of surplus value has been explained by Marx in his famous book, Thus Capital. He explained it to show how capitalists exploit the labor. So he says that in a capitalist society, the bourgeois were often exploited the proletariat or the working class. He said that capitalists do not give just wages, they get only the meager wages. They pay according to their will and they monopolize the profit. Marx based his theory on Ricardo's labor theory of value. According to his theory, the value of a commodity is determined by the labor applied for the production of the commodity. The produce requiring higher and superior labor has a higher value than the produce requiring lower and inferior labor. According to Marx, the actual value is determined by the cost of the labor. By the market value of the commodity is higher. Thus, the difference between actually the surplus value is the difference between the wages given to the laborer and the actual product of that commodity is known as the surplus value. Marx calls the surplus money monopolized by capitalists as surplus value. Then there are so many criticism arise on the theory of surplus value. First one is the labor is not only the factor of production. Second one, capitalists make other expenses also. Then third criticism is ignore the mental labor. Then it contains contradictions. Last point, his concept of alienation. In general fashion, alienation means a process of depersonalization, separation from one's genuine or essential nature. Alienation was a central principle of Marx's early writings. According to Marx, alienation is a process whereby, under capitalism, labor is reduced to being a mere commodity and the works became a depersonalized activity. In his view, workers are alienated from the product of their labor. And I am going to the critical appreciation on Marxism. Marx, he strongly emphasize on the economic factors. Marx says that everything is determined by the economic factors only. Then second criticism is class struggle is unhistorical. Then third point is the revolution leads to bloodshed. Then another one, state is not an instrument of exploitation. Then labor alone does not create the value, and rich are not become richer and poor are not become richer. Thank you.